She's just a failed coder with emotional baggage. We all have our family charity cases, right? That's how my brother, Brad Carter, opened his keynote speech at a tech conference attended by over 200 people at the Westfield Convention Center in Seattle. He said it like I was some stain the family had to scrub around. He wore a navy suit, smiled like he was giving his personal TED Talk, and delivered the line with the kind of confidence only someone born into legacy wealth could pull off. And me? I was backstage, holding a USB drive that contained the presentation I'd spent 3 months building, only to hear my own blood turn me into a punchline. The audience laughed. The camera panned to my father's face. He was laughing too. Madeline's startup was born out of a therapy session, not strategy. But we still love her, Brad continued, like he was patting a lost child on the head. The room applauded. I didn't walk on stage. I didn't say a word. I just walked away, quietly, the way a bomb walks away from its own blast zone when it decides not to detonate. I didn't cry on the way home. I opened my laptop, logged into my AI platform dashboard, the same emotional project they just mocked. And I smiled, because just 2 days earlier, I had signed a partnership memorandum worth 8 figures with the Oregon Department of Health to deploy our AI system for statewide mental health support. None of them knew. Not one of them believed I could do it. Not my brother, not my father, not even my mother, if she was still around. And that was the moment I realized I wasn't going to fight for a place on their stage, the one they shoved me off of. I was going to build my own, and next time, when they walk into the room, they'll need to buy a ticket just to sit down. My name is Madeline Carter, and this is how I turned a public humiliation into a 9-figure empire, using the silence they once laughed at. My name is Madeline Carter. I'm 29 years old and I live in Seattle, where the rain falls like the sky is apologizing for something it can't fix. I wasn't born into a family that hated me, but I've never been completely sure they loved me either. At least not in the way I needed to be loved. I'm the second child in a family of 4. My father, Charles Carter, is a retired Navy lieutenant commander turned community college professor in strategic management. My mother passed away from lung cancer when I was 15. And my older brother, Brad Carter, 4 years my senior, was the chosen one. The golden boy. He inherited every ounce of Dad's trust and every expectation I never got close to touching. Brad was sent to boarding school in 9th grade, a private military academy in Vermont. Me, I studied digital arts at Seattle Community College, then went on to major in cognitive science. To my dad, that translated to no direction. He once said it out loud at Christmas dinner when I was 24. A son studying finance is building a foundation, a daughter majoring in that stuff, just decorating the walls. I didn't argue. I just sat there, silent, like always. After Mom passed, it felt like the house belonged to 3 men having their own conversation, and I was a stray line of code no one bothered to debug. I rarely pushed back, but I remembered everything, every word, every glance, every time I was looked through instead of looked at, like my existence was an afterthought. Brad never outright bullied me, at least not when we were kids. But he had a way of making me feel smaller. Once, during finals week, he pulled the plug on my laptop mid-project and said, Consider it a stress test. In the real world, servers crash. Learn to cope. Dad laughed. I grew up in a house with more leadership books than storybooks, more CNBC than family dinners. We weren't abusive. No one yelled. They just didn't believe I could be more than the box they'd already put me in. Because I was sensitive. Because I kept journals. Because I liked things you couldn't slap a KPI on. But somewhere in those quiet hours, when I stopped trying to earn their approval, I started writing code. First, little scripts. Then a prototype AI app that read facial expressions, built for people suffering from post-isolation depression. I didn't tell anyone, because if I did, they'd want to optimize it, brand it, make it strategic. They'd offer advice I never asked for. I didn't need more advisors. I needed space to breathe. And from that silence, something was born, not just a tool, but a voice. My voice. For me. The problem was, my family never heard it because they never stopped talking long enough to listen. I never thought Brad's voice could sound so cold. It echoed through the auditorium like a velvet-wrapped blade, slicing clean through every shred of self-worth I'd spent years building in silence. That year's Tech Forward Seattle conference was supposed to be a milestone. For the first time, my company, Claralyn AI, had been invited to speak on a major stage. We had just completed Phase 2 clinical trials for an AI-powered post-pandemic mental health therapy platform. It was a breakthrough. I had prepped for 3 straight months. Rewrote my script more than 10 times. Rehearsed in front of the mirror, perfecting every pause, every expression. I didn't want to impress anyone. I just wanted a chance to be seen for the real value I was creating. And then, 3 minutes before I was scheduled to speak, Brad walked on stage. No one warned me. He was the surprise keynote speaker, representing strategic investment partners. I stood backstage, clutching my slides, praying silently, "Please, just don't mention me." He opened with a story about failed startups. He smirked, and then locked eyes with the shadows, where I stood frozen. Some ventures aren't born out of market research. They come from therapy sessions. My sister, for example, she thinks a few lines of code can save the world. Silence. Then, laughter. Someone whistled. A camera panned backstage. I saw the red light flash. Maybe I was now on screen, not as a founder, but as the punchline. We all have that one relative, right? Brad went on, his tone dripping with triumph. The ones who build things just to prove they're not useless. We love them, but we invest in reality. The applause was thunderous, and I didn't go on stage. I set my USB on the tech table, removed my mic, grabbed my phone, and walked out through the emergency exit, quietly. No one stopped me. No one asked where I went, not a single email from the organizers. And from my family, just one thumbs-up emoji from my dad. Brad did great, very professional. That night, I sat alone in my tiny home office. I opened my laptop, logged into the system, and stared at the dashboard. We had just hit our first 100,000 users. 4 healthcare organizations were negotiating full-scale deployment. A funding proposal sat in my inbox, awaiting my signature. A future was sprouting, right beneath the feet of the people who had once labeled me emotional garbage. I opened a blank Word doc, and I typed, "On the day they laughed." I laid the foundation. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was sad, but because my mind wouldn't stop running, like a system rebooting after being forcefully shut down mid-process. Somewhere along the way, I had grown used to being written out of the picture, never mentioned, never introduced, never the pride of the family like Brad. But maybe that was exactly what gave me more freedom than they ever realized. On the surface, Claralyn AI looked like a modest little health tech startup. Behind the scenes, we had already completed data integration with the mental health records of 3 federal hospital systems, under provisional clearance from a post-pandemic pilot program. We didn't do press, no flashy campaigns, no fundraising noise, no trending hashtags. I knew Brad's type far too well. He only got involved when the scent of money was unmistakable. I had already lost an idea during my sophomore year, just because I'd shared it too early with him. I wasn't going to lose this one. Instead of media tours, I spent my time meeting privately with community health teams in Oregon, Idaho, and later New Mexico. We used our own AI system to track behavioral improvements over 3 months, then 6, across different intervention stages. And the results stunned even me. Depression relapse rates dropped by 26%. Parents of children with ADHD reported double the satisfaction compared to their previous therapy models. The system was on track to be recommended for national expansion, pending a full data safety audit. What I had in my hands wasn't just projections or pitches. It was real change for real people. I had planned to let Brad find out gradually. I imagined him stumbling upon it in the next quarterly report, but I was wrong. He didn't wait for me to speak up. He showed up at my door with a takeover contract in hand. I didn't know they were coming. No heads up, no message, no scheduled appointment, just the doorbell ringing at 8:59 a.m. The kind of precise timing people use when they think professionalism means control. I checked the security camera. Brad, same navy suit, same smug confidence, flanked by 2 assistants who looked like overworked MBA interns. White shirts, leather folders, the kind of serious faces people wear when pretending they're closing a $100 million deal. Right behind them was my father, Charles, cradling an overpriced coffee cup, his face so calm you'd think this was just a casual family visit. I buzzed them in. They walked in. No hello, no how are you. Brad went straight to my desk and placed a printed document on it. "Let's make this quick," he said, voice low but sharp with authority. "We're prepared to absorb your company's debts and offer you a small equity slice. You'll stay on for a transition period. 6 months, max." I didn't blink. My father nodded, wearing a smile that seemed to sign the deal on my behalf. "He's being generous, Maddie. You should thank your brother." Through the so-called offer. One hurriedly printed sheet of paper. No signatures, no valuation, no mention of intellectual property, no inquiry about our public health contracts, not even a reference to source code ownership. A crumpled flyer, dressed up in the arrogance of men who never believed I had anything worth protecting. I didn't get angry. I didn't raise my voice. I opened my laptop, turned the screen toward them, showing our live dashboard, real-time user growth, licensing revenue, and bold text in the upper right corner. Clara Lynn, AI. 11 months in. Cash flow positive. Brad froze. What? I gave a small smile. You want to absorb the debt? I asked. Which one? The one that doesn't exist? I clicked again. A new window popped up. State-level MOUs signed with 3 major healthcare networks. Official seals, signatures, verified. Right beneath it, the morning headline from Tech Chronicle. From dropout to disruptor, Clara Lynn AE secures 4.2 M from Vision Leap Capital. Silence. Not the awkward kind. The kind that seals a room shut with the weight of realization. My father leaned in toward the screen, squinting as if trying to convince himself he was misreading the truth. That's fake, he muttered. You never told us. I nodded slowly. Exactly, because I knew if I did, you'd try to own it, like always. I reached into my drawer and pulled out another document. A drafted cease and desist order, alleging reputational interference. Signed, ready, addressed to Brad Carter. What you did last night, publicly declaring your intent to acquire my company in front of my existing partners, that was unsolicited, unprofessional, defamatory. I stood up, calmly, and pointed to the door. You came here thinking I owed you proof of my worth. But all you did was walk into a company you never believed in, and prove I never needed your belief to build it. They left in silence. No threats, no parting shots. Just a few shaky footsteps and the soft click of the door closing behind them, so quiet I had to check the security feed to be sure they were really gone. I didn't blast celebratory music. I didn't scream like they do in the movies. I just sat down, fingers resting on the keyboard, and took a deep breath, not out of fear, but out of release. For the first time in my life, I stood in front of them and didn't flinch. Didn't apologize for being too sensitive. Didn't explain why I wasn't like them. Didn't bow my head for not becoming the Carter family's model child. A few hours later, my phone started buzzing. First came the email from Tech Chronicle. Would you be open to a feature in our Founders to Watch segment? Next issue focuses on under-the-radar innovators reshaping entire industries. Then, Fast Tech magazine. A candid shot of me smiling at my laptop, headline in bold. Silent Genius, How Madeline Carter's AI is Quietly Saving Lives Post-Pandemic. Twitter blew up with the hashtag Clara Lynn Breakthrough. A clip from Brad's keynote, where he mocked me, was clipped and posted with a biting caption. Guess which sibling actually built something while the other gave a TED talk nobody asked for? While Brad quietly took down his LinkedIn for scheduled maintenance, I was taking a call from the vice president of Everbridge Health, a firm that once passed on me saying, mental health is still too volatile, and you lack a clear strategic partner. Now, we'd like to revisit our conversation, Madeline, the man said, voice carefully measured. There might be room for a long-term integration deal after all. I didn't retaliate. I didn't gloat. I simply said one line, short enough to remind them I hadn't forgotten the rejection, but long past the point of needing validation from it. I'll have my team send over the updated white paper, but this time we negotiate on my terms. It was close to noon. I stepped out onto the rooftop balcony of our office, the same spot I used to sit alone in the rain, wondering if I was wasting my time. Now, it was drenched in sunlight. The wind was gentle, not a storm, and for the first time I wasn't whispering to myself, "Be patient, they'll see," because I didn't need them to see anymore. The world already was. That afternoon, after a flood of emails from reporters, investors, and potential partners, another message popped up in my inbox. Its subject line stood out. Urgent, joint statement proposal sent from Brad's assistant. I clicked. It was polite, overly professional, almost robotic. Long-winded, but in essence it read, "The Carter family, including Brad Carter and Charles Carter, would like to propose a joint press release. The goal is to clarify the misunderstanding at the recent Tech Forward conference and frame it as a collaborative success within the Carter family." I paused at that phrase. A collaborative sibling success story. I let out a laugh, not loud, but real. At the conference, they called me emotional baggage. At my office, they brought papers to cut me out of my own company. And now that I'd made the front page, they wanted to share the stage? I didn't reply. I didn't call back. I didn't delete the email either. Instead, I opened my calendar, found the invite from Tech Chronicle for an exclusive interview, and hit confirm. The interview was filmed in a modest studio. No fancy lights, no overproduction. The host, Cassandra, was a middle-aged woman with a calm voice and razor-sharp presence. Her first question stopped me for a beat. "Madeline, how does it feel to be underestimated, not just by your industry, but by your own family?" I didn't dodge it. I didn't give a polite smile. I looked straight into the camera and said, "It feels like walking into a storm, after someone took your umbrella before you even left the house." But eventually I learned, if the rain doesn't stop, you learn to dance in it. Cassandra nodded slowly. "And if you had the chance to say something to your brother right now?" I gave it 3 seconds. "I'd say thank you, because his doubt taught me how to build, without needing permission." The interview ended. A small round of applause came from the crew, not the kind given out of politeness, but the kind people offer when they witness someone step fully into their own power. That night, 47 more emails came in, mostly invitations to collaborate, but one stood out. Subject: Rejoint statement, please reconsider. Same sender, same intent. I didn't open it because I didn't need them to rewrite the story. I was already writing it, one word at a time, with my own life. The message came in on a Saturday night, from a distant cousin, one of the few who still kept in touch, even if only occasionally. "Mady, did you know the family's throwing a wedding for Rachel at Westbrook Estate next week? They've even got the Clara Lynn AI logo on the backdrop." I didn't react right away. I typed the event name into Google. The RSVP page loaded. There she was, my cousin Rachel, in a white wedding dress, standing next to her fiancé, a young doctor. They were beaming. I scrolled through the guest list. My name wasn't there, not even BCC'd on the announcement email. But below, in the event description, italicized text read, The Carter family is proud to host this intimate celebration of our daughter's wedding and honor those who've contributed to our legacy of innovation, especially Clara Lynn AI, a symbol of our pioneering spirit. I paused, not out of anger, but because it didn't even surprise me anymore. This was the same family that once refused to have dinner with me because I was too abstract. Now that my name carried weight, they were borrowing it to polish their image. I didn't call to argue. I didn't text, "So I'm not invited." I didn't beg for a seat at the table. I made one call. To the brand partnerships team at Westbrook Estate, the venue hosting the wedding. They were using the Clara Lynn AI logo without permission. And, more importantly, Clara Lynn had just signed a tech exclusivity deal with Westbrook's parent company 2 weeks prior. It took me 3 minutes to explain. The next afternoon, I received a reply. "Thank you, Ms. Carter. We've updated our materials and will be removing all banners, graphics, and promotional references to Clara Lynn AI from the event. We'll notify the organizing party accordingly." No apology, no excuses, just action. And that was enough. On the day of the wedding, I received a blurry photo, snapped discreetly by a friend in the industry who happened to attend. The event backdrop had a conspicuous blank space dead center where the logo used to be. No Clara Lynn, no mention of me. And I thought, sometimes the most powerful thing isn't being offered a seat at the table. It's making them reset the table, because you're no longer sitting there. That evening, I didn't dine alone. I booked a table on the 17th floor of a quiet little restaurant. Nothing fancy, but peaceful. I invited 3 people: our lead engineer, our UX designer, and a female intern who once cried when her idea made it into the final product. We didn't talk about AI. We laughed, shared old stories, ordered dessert twice, and raised our glasses. To the ones who build quietly, while others are busy posing for pictures. The message came in on a Wednesday, not from an assistant, not a cease from a boardroom thread, just one line. From Brad's personal number, the first time he'd texted me directly since walking into my office with that cheap takeover proposal. "Congrats on the funding. Coffee sometime? Just us." I read it over. Then again, no emoji, no apology. But I could feel it. That familiar flicker behind his polished calm. The uncertainty he always tried to cover since we were kids. I replied, "Sure, your office, noon." I arrived on time. Empty-handed, except for a printed article from Tech Insider. A recent valuation breakdown showing that Clara Lynn AI was now worth 3 times what his firm had originally estimated. Brad opened the door with that signature smile, the same one that used to make me question my own reactions, even when I'd just been publicly humiliated. "You're winning right now. That's great," he said, pouring coffee. "But you know how this works, Maddie. These waves pass, boards change. You need someone who knows how to navigate the market. I can help you scale." I didn't push back. I just tilted my head, my voice quiet, almost gentle. "Scale? You mean like how your fund just lost 3 clients last quarter?" He froze. His face stayed still. But I knew. Brad never liked truth unless it came with trailing zeros. I placed the printout on the table, didn't slide it toward him, didn't force him to read. You tried to take what I built, I said, eyes steady. Now you want to guide it because you finally realized I've outpaced you. Silence. No comeback, no sarcasm. For the first time, Brad didn't have a ready line. He exhaled, softly. Don't let your ego kill your momentum, Madeline. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so predictable. My ego, I repeated. I wasn't even allowed to have one, remember? You and Dad made sure of that. I was the emotional one, the artsy sibling, the girl who wrote poetry and couldn't handle real pressure. I stood, looked him in the eyes, for once, without flinching. Now that I've got altitude, Brad, I'm keeping my hands on the wheel. I turned to leave. He called after me, "So that's it? You won't even hear me out?" I stopped at the door, didn't turn around, just left him with one final line. Not until you can say my name, without sounding like it comes with an asterisk. And then I walked out. No glance back. Because this time, I was the one leaving the room. But I took the power with me. I never replied to Brad's message after that meeting. No rejection, no confirmation. I let it drift, in silence. Because while he was busy thinking I was being difficult or emotionally reactive, I and my legal team were quietly executing a move I'd been setting up for over a month. It started the night after the Tech Forward conference. Me alone, dashboard glowing on my screen, and that smug internal memo from Brad's firm still fresh in my inbox. I wasn't just angry. I remembered. And I had authorized a third-party holding group, one with no visible ties to me, to begin quietly acquiring minority shares in Brad's own company. The reasoning was simple. No one notices when the Carter name isn't on the meeting invite, and no one suspects the emotional baggage sister is orchestrating a takeover behind the curtain, share by share, from minor stakeholders, from people pulling out after Brad's string of PR disasters. It wasn't hard to convince them. Brad had been unraveling his own reputation for months. I just showed up when the timing was right. 3 weeks after that coffee meeting, on the eve of Carter Equity's Q3 earnings call, I released a press statement. Just 3 lines. Vision leap. Holdings has officially acquired a 21% stake in Carter Equity Group. Claralyn AI will enter a strategic partnership with Carter Equity's healthcare division. The new chair of the Strategic Tech Advisory Board, Madeline Carter. 3 lines. That was all it took to shake an entire boardroom. Brad called that morning. No caller ID. I didn't pick up. I was busy. Sitting in a high-floor conference room on the 12th, facing the very people who once only knew me as a footnote in his anecdotes. Only now, they were waiting for me to walk them through the integration strategy between behavioral health tech and Carter's investment portfolio. Not as the little sister who needed help, but as the architect of a deal they never saw coming. By late afternoon, Brad's assistant sent a short email. "We didn't expect this move. Brad requests a closed-door meeting. Just you and him." I didn't reply right away. I left it unread, because I had a speech to prepare. A keynote he could have stood beside me for, if, from the very beginning, he had chosen to believe in me, instead of trying to own what I built. But now it's too late. I didn't need to destroy him. I just needed to stand above him, legally, irreversibly, unapologetically. They told me I'd feel empty after getting revenge, that once you rise above the ones who used to look down on you, all that's left is silence. They were wrong. I didn't feel empty. I felt light. And it was that very afternoon, in that stillness that needed no explanation, when my receptionist called from the front desk. "Madeline, your father is here. He says he wants to talk, alone." I thought it was a mistake. My father had never stepped foot inside Clara Lynn, never called to congratulate me, never sent a message after any of the articles. And yet, there he was, standing in the glass lobby downstairs, hands in the pockets of his coat, wearing the expression of a man who'd walked into a world he once refused to imagine. I buzzed him in. He stepped through the door slowly, like he was walking through memories he chose to forget. "Nice place," he said, eyes scanning the white space, the soft light falling on the equipment I spent 5 years saving up to build. I nodded. "It is." We sat. No music, no pleasantries. He was quiet for a while, then said, "I saw the article. Didn't expect you'd go that public." I looked him straight in the eye. "You made it public when you pitched me as part of your legacy without asking." He exhaled, like he'd hoped that detail had been forgotten. "That wasn't my intent." I shook my head. "But it was your instinct. To center yourself. To act like my work reflects you, when it actually reflects the absence I had to grow past." I didn't speak with anger. I didn't raise my voice. But every word I chose, every pause I let hang, carried the weight he had refused to acknowledge my entire life. The silence stretched. And then he said, softly, without excuse, without trying to seize back control, "I wasn't perfect, but I did what I thought was right." I leaned in, eyes steady. "No, Dad, you did what was easy. You praised the son who mirrored you and dismissed the daughter who challenged you. You made love conditional. And when I succeeded, you tried to rewrite the credits." He looked down. For the first time, I saw him without a retort. No lecture about how the world works. Finally, he looked back up, his voice almost hollow. "I don't know how to fix this." I stood, not in anger, not in bitterness, just clarity. You don't. You don't get to rewrite the story now. You don't get to wear my success like a badge, but you do get to watch it from the audience, like everyone else. I reached out, not to shake his hand, but to gesture toward the door. He stood, walked slowly toward the elevator. Right before the doors closed, he turned back, no apology, no justification, just one sentence. "I underestimated you." I nodded. "I know." The door slid shut, and I exhaled a breath I'd probably been holding for 15 years. Palo Alto was unusually bright that day. Not the harsh kind of sun, but a soft golden light. Like the sky itself knew today was meant for something solemn. I stood backstage at Stanford's main auditorium, a place I never studied at, but one that now honored me with a seat at their Women Who Build Summit. Nearly 500 people in attendance, mostly women, many of them young. And in their eyes, I saw a version of myself from 10 years ago. My keynote was titled, "Build Without Permission." As I stepped onto the stage, the mic picked up, the spotlight found my face. But this time, I didn't flinch. No more lowered head, no trembling hands, no searching for approval in anyone else's eyes. I began with a story most of them had already heard. But this was the first time it came from me. I was the dreamer, the second child with no roadmap, the artist among system architects, the emotional baggage in a family obsessed with strategy. And yet, I, the one who never had a seat at family dinners, built a system now used by 32 public health centers across the country. I used to think I needed to be heard to prove my worth, but eventually I learned. Value isn't in the applause. It's in every quiet moment when you choose to keep going, even when no one's standing beside you. The room fell silent. No coughs, no pens clicking, just eyes, watching, not with curiosity, but with recognition. I looked toward the front row where women far ahead of me sat, and they were nodding. I didn't come here to tell a revenge story. I came to remind someone, quietly building right now. You don't need a famous last name. You don't need someone to vouch for you. You don't need permission. You just need to begin with something small. I ended with one simple line, but I knew it was the line I had longed to hear my whole life. You don't need to inherit power to make impact. You can start with yourself. The applause came, not rushed, not polite, but deep, real, heavy, like something had been ignited in the hearts of those women. That evening, I didn't go straight back to the hotel. I walked through Stanford's campus, my speaker badge still clipped to my chest. I paused under a tree, and for the first time in a long time, I looked up at the sky and didn't feel the weight of it. No one was behind me. No one was leading me. And no one was in my way anymore. I don't build because I'm allowed to. I build because I no longer need permission just to exist. That night, back at the hotel, my phone showed 27 missed calls and 59 unread messages. 2 of our strategic partners had just signed a 2-year extension with Claralyn. There was an invitation from NPR for a feature on Voices of Change, and a message from my stepmother, the one who once told me to get a stable job, because not everyone's meant to lead. Saw the live stream. You were poised, professional, a little cold, maybe. But I'm proud of you. I read it once. Then I turned off my phone. Not because I was angry, but because I didn't need it anymore. I used to think the greatest win was earning respect from those who once dismissed me. But the truth is, victory isn't when they change their mind. Victory is when you no longer need their opinion. I stepped out onto the suite's balcony. The night breeze was soft, the sky quieter than I'd ever known. Below me, the city pulsed with light. Like the living nervous system I once dreamed of building. Inside, my team was popping champagne. They didn't wait for me, because they knew I didn't build this company for celebrations. I built it to exist, with or without recognition. My assistant asked, "Do you ever regret it? Not compromising earlier, to hurt a little less?" I smiled, poured a glass of water, not champagne. No. I used to want their respect. Now I have something better. distance, and a vision they can no longer reach. I didn't need to break down the door to get a seat at the family table. I built my own table, and the people sitting around it, they're the ones who were once shut out, labeled as too emotional, too soft, not a good fit. They didn't come to ask for a seat, they came to redesign the room. So if anyone's ever told you you're too different to succeed, don't change yourself. Build a path where your difference is the advantage. If you've been left outside the frame, don't force your way in. Build your own frame. Hang it where the world has no choice but to look up. And if you've ever been the weaker one in your family, in your workplace, in society, remember this. You don't need them to choose you. You just need to choose yourself. This is the story of Madeline Carter, from the failed little sister to the one who rewrote the rules. And if you're out there quietly building in the shadows, know this: silence isn't weakness. Silence is strategy.